Morgan. All right, go ahead.
All right, so taking a look at my team here versus I'm on a new level. You know, we got Pat Mahomes. You know, he underperformed where I really thought that he should have been. But like I said before, I think as the season gets going, he's only going to get better. Saquon coming off that injury, I didn't expect a lot out of him for the first week, so he performed about where we expected. And then moving down here, Ramondre Stevenson, he had a really great week considering how well or how poorly he's been doing throughout the year. So that was nice to see him getting to the levels on which we expected him to be. Brandon Ayuk, he had a little bit of a off day, in my opinion. You know, he could have had a little bit better, but Cleveland's defense is good.
That whole
And
Niners team had an off day.
yeah. Everybody had an off day there. So and Cleveland's defense is good. I mean, and Ayuk's points came later in the fourth quarter, so that was all kind of backloaded. And then we have Garrett Wilson. Obviously, he did well compared to where he's been, but you know a lot of that, and I was betting a lot of him when I kept him as my keeper. And which I mean I had him in a great position as my keeper, but I was expecting to get more points out of him week in week out. But I had a lot of that relying on the fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to be there. Last year when I had him, we had Zach Wilson there when he was playing. I sometimes I didn't even start Garrett Wilson because Zach Wilson was just not that guy. But luckily, we've seen a lot out of Zach Wilson the past couple weeks. He's been stepping up and he's been doing a lot better. Obviously, he beat the 49ers. And, you know, hopefully we're going to see more of him and Garrett here being able to connect as the season moves forward. And then we have Dallas Goddard, however you pronounce his name. I mean, he came off a big week last week, but he fell right back into that slump that he was in with 6.7 points this week. That's really on the Philadelphia Eagles. They've been using him more in pass protection and run protection this year than they have as a receiver. Obviously, I didn't foresee that when I drafted him at the beginning of the year, but you know, we're gonna keep our eye on some of these other tight ends that are gonna make themselves available, hopefully, and hopefully, Goddard can get it back on track, and Philadelphia can use him as it should be, and we'll be getting more points out of him. Raheem Mostert, obviously, you know, hit 34.2 points. Um, there's just not enough to say about this guy. I mean, he wasn't expected to be this good. I mean, even when I drafted him, I believe a couple people, including yourself, were like, I dropped him Raheem Mostert. I don't know about that. And I didn't even love the pick when I made it. He was just the best guy available on the board at that point in time. So I was like, all right, this is going to be my guy. And he ended up being a huge surprise. I think he probably might be one of the biggest surprises of the year as far as his production. Chiefs defense always great. As of this year, they've been putting up a lot of points. They've been doing really well. They're really explosive. They got a couple key components back on the defense as far as pass rushing, and then seeing them do well is only going to continue. And then Jake Moody, I mean, he missed 2 field goals last week. I mean, that was super disappointing. I know I made a comment in our group saying, "Hey, look, you know, this guy's getting cut on Tuesday," but I looked to see what else was available, and I didn't love the options. So we're gonna give him another shot this week and
He's a
going
rookie, man. Gotta let him figure it out.
yeah, I mean, I was disappointed in that, but we're gonna keep riding with him and kind of see how he does. And then on a Manu level, I mean, you know, there's things that he needs to work out. I mean, there's some guys on here that throughout the week have not been playing up to where they should be playing. I mean, Joe Burrow, 13 points, 14 points. It's just that's not indicative of what the Joe Burrow that we saw last year. So Dalvin Cook, you know, well, that was to be expected, but he's going to get lower points, but 1.9, again, that's just not really what you're expecting out of a guy like that. So when your team as a whole is just not performing as where you thought they would be, you got to start making some changes. And 2.9 points out of Jared Judy. I'm thinking what Steve Smith Sr. has been saying about Jared Judy has been correct. I mean, he hasn't been that guy. He's a wide receiver, and if I was Georgia, I would be looking to see what I could do to replace that guy because he has not been what people expect him to be over the past couple of years, and he is just still not getting it done. So changes should be looking to be made in that position.
Yeah, I mean, I know you said a good bit there. Just kind of I'll talk about George first. Like, yeah, I mean, at this point, with the roster that you have constructed, It's clearly not a winning formula, and you have a lot of really good players on this team. This could be one of those situations where you could trade Justin Jefferson. I know he's on IR, but still could get a good commodity for him. Could trade Amon Ra. I mean, you have a lot of pieces that are valuable to people who are in contention. I'm sure yourself included would be interested in one of those two guys. But yeah, it's one of those deals where look, this team's not going to produce a winner this year. It's probably not going to make the playoffs this year unless something drastically changes with a lot of these guys' performances. But you could really flip this roster around, make it interesting, and find a winning formula. But it's probably going to take a lot of legwork. And then as far as your team, I'm not going to talk too much because you spent a good amount of time on it. But yeah, I will say as far as the Mostert comment, yeah, I was criticizing the draft pick a little bit just for the fact that I thought with Achane and Jeff Wilson there, it's a lot of mouths to feed with that. But obviously with the injuries and how it's all kind of worked out, Mostert's clearly ascended to be the guy. Gonna, like you said with Mike McDaniel, like you never know how he's gonna treat running backs week to week, especially when they get healthy again. But yeah, for now it's a clear slam dunk RB1 fantasy football. So good there. And then with Goddard, yeah, it's tough. A lot of mouths to feed in Philly with all those playmakers. Swift has ascended. Those two receivers, it's just a lot of places for the ball to go, and Hurts has got to get his on the ground too. So you're going to get that with tight ends. Anyone that's not named Travis Kelce, it's going to be a question mark every week. So, but yeah, good window here. And moving on to a rather lame one here. But we got Wuhan versus Milkman. Wuhan had a really hot start to this year, but some of these guys kind of falling back down to earth. Debo gets hurt, which stinks. Kirk Cousins looking like Kirk Cousins again. Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, so all of a sudden this team's riddled with injury, a lot of issues. T. Higgins, fully healthy, 3 points on the bench. That's a guy you drafted really high. So that kind of, Michael Pittman's been a nice surprise, and Jacoby Myers has really been a nice play too. So there's some good, here's some bad, but I think this is 2 weeks in a row now, not breaking 100, getting back to his 2022 ways. So concern here with this team. Hot start, but starting to slide. Milkman, not the best performance. Clearly having some quarterback issues mentally. I know he commented that he got so much criticism for playing Stroud last week. Put Fields back in there. Fields dislocates his hand or some fractures his hand. So that's kind of is one of those deals. But yeah, just Tyreek monster. He's going to win you games like he did this week. And Johnny Smith, great tight end pickup. I have him in another league, and he's been quite a pleasant surprise as a second tight end option on that Falcons team. But 96 points, nothing crazy to jump out at you. Amari had a nice day with a backup quarterback, which is interesting to see. Just solid performances from the running backs. But yeah, it's nothing crazy here to gloat about. But yeah, I think Wazinski's got a lot of injury problems he's going to have to deal with that might drop him down a little bit.
I agree. And you look at his team as a whole. I mean, you would think going into this year, he had Kirk Cousins, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Christian McCaffrey did not perform to where he should have been performing this week, and Kirk Cousins was a little bit off. And T.J. Hockenson, I mean, I was thinking about that the other day. I mean, he didn't do horribly, but he didn't do great. It just makes me glad because that dude was on the Lions for so long, and he gets traded to the Vikings last year, thinking, all right, this is more of a Super Bowl contending team, and now they're what are they? They've won one game all year. I mean,
Two.
I think
I think they're
two
two and
games.
two and three, 2 and 4.
Yeah, so it's just I find that kind of comical. But he's also got guys like Michael Pittman who's been super solid. I have another league and he's been a great flex option all year. But just he needs to move more pieces around, try to plug and play. But like you said, with T. Higgins, him having injury issues all year, he dropped him kind of high. There's always situations where you're gonna have those. I drafted T. Higgins in another league and I've been having the same issues. And my records reflected that. But moving on to the Milkman, obviously Justin Fields, he's been having a pretty solid year, but you just can't, you don't expect a guy to get injured in the second quarter like that, and you can't foresee things like that happening. Because I think if he didn't, obviously the Milkman would have scored a lot more points. And then moving down here to Mike Evans, I mean, I know that I give Mike Evans a lot of hate. I think he's a seriously overrated wide receiver. I can't stand the guy. I had him last year, and he's just garbage. And Mike Evans had 3 really good weeks in the beginning of the year, but now we're getting back to true Mike Evans form where he puts up 6.9 points. I mean, this is what you're getting with Mike Evans. He's not a reliable guy, and this is why I had him on my do not draft list. Even if he was the best player available during the draft, I would not have drafted this guy. So I think where I would really be if I was the milkman is taking a look and seeing, you know, look at the points he scored and some of your other weak spots, which really the milkman doesn't really have too many weak spots in his roster. His
No,
bench
he
is a
doesn't.
little light. And he could probably do a couple things. And I know looking at his bench that he's made a couple roster moves, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, I mean, I think it was an off week for the milkman just due to the fact of Justin Fields' injury.
Yeah, and it's nice when you have a down week from one of your big contributors and you still gonna win. So wish I knew that what that felt like, but maybe someday. Moving on here to Tonkat versus Rock Boys. You know, looking at Ryan here, I mean, Russell Wilson really let him down. I know he's it's funny to play Russell Wilson because he was so bad last year, but he's been pretty solid this year all in all. Devontae's who the fuck knows what's going on in Vegas. He needs to get out of there. Clearly, your boy Josh McDaniels is not using him correctly because he should be getting 20 targets a game. He is the best receiver in football. Having to plug in Gus Edwards there can't feel great. Swift continues to perform. Ridley is a boomer bust player. Kelsey does what he does, and 90 points again. Just kind of riding the wave here a little bit. Addison probably will continue to put up double digits, maybe closer to 20, just because he's the guy now with Justin Jefferson out. But looking at the bench, T. Law is probably going to be the starter next week, or he plays tonight. So tough Saints defense, and he's not 100%. So maybe we get Russ again. We'll see. It's not the best quarterback situation to be involved in. And then sliding over to Rock Boys here, 106, another solid score. Having some tight end problems because I know we started Hunter Henry last week, 0 points. Logan Thomas this week's 0.7. Doesn't matter, gets the win. CD Lamb and Adam Thielen appear to be the number one receiver threat in football. Austin Eckler getting back, first week back. That's 8.2 is probably the season low he's gonna have moving forward. So this and obviously with Montgomery, he gets injured. You're gonna get a lot more. So it's really nice that you can have a lot of guys underperform and still, put up 106, get a win. But yeah, this team fully healthy. I mean, you're gonna move Alvin Kamara into that RB2 spot. With those two running backs, those two receivers, this team's going to be really, really tough to beat moving forward.
I agree. I mean, taking a look at Tonkat here, I mean, Russell Wilson, he has been doing super great all year. But when we're looking at who they're playing, with Trevor Lawrence playing Indy and then Russell Wilson playing Kansas City, I would have probably put Lawrence in over Russell Wilson just due to the fact that Kansas City's defense is so explosive right now, and they're kind of flying all over the field. And we really saw that from Russell Wilson, his struggles this week, or excuse me, last week, in that game. Gus Edwards, as you said, I mean, that's just you're just trying to put in your best option. Unfortunately, the options aren't great right now. And like you said, Devontae Adams and what's going on there in Vegas is just
Doesn't make any sense.
it's Denver all over again from 10 years ago. I mean, I didn't love the Josh McDaniels pickup by the Raiders, and I stand by that. He's not a great head coach. He's a great offensive coordinator. He's just not a head coach. But the rest of the team there, you've got the Eagles defense, who's typically pretty good, and all the rest of those guys that have a opportunity to really shine. And I think with a couple roster moves that Tonkat could get better. I'm looking over here at Rock Boys. I mean, like you said, it's a really solid team. Austin Eckler, Josh Allen's been kind of doing his thing, and Adam Thielen. I mean, nobody really expected him to be who he is this year.
Crazy.
So that really was a solid pickup by Rock Boys, and then you still have the Cowboys defense, who's been solid. The only thing he really did was he moved a couple pieces around at the tight end and put Logan Thomas in. He really let him down. I mean, Logan Thomas is a little bit shaky. I looked at him as possibly pick him up over Dallas Goedert earlier in the year, and I just couldn't pull the trigger on him because I didn't have a lot of faith. And
He seems to have
was my
injury
problem with the
problems
decision.
too. He has
Yeah,
some big weeks, but he gets a lot of concussions.
yep. He's a real hit or miss, so just no consistency there.
Oh, and like we said with tight ends, that's kind of what you get when they're not named Travis Kelce. But yeah, no, I really like Rock Boy's roster now that he's kind of healthy and moving forward here. And then last team, our number one first place team, Team Bucher against Rearview. Team Bucher just seems to be putting up consistent numbers week in, week out. It doesn't really matter who's playing, who does what. He's going to put up close to 130 almost every week, it seems like. And, just up and down. He picked up Dak Prescott because I know Nate dropped him. Clearly, Dak had a good, 25 points. That for quarterbacks quarterbacks have been scoring and seem to be lower this year for whatever reason. So, Dak Prescott, 25 points will take that all week, especially getting a free agency pick up there. A lot of quarterback issues on this team, but Dak might solve that. They have their own bye coming up. But yeah, it's again another really strong roster, really solid performance. And then rear view, still clicking the right buttons, trying to figure things out. With this team, Brees Hall, I think, has solidified himself as the guy again. So that looks to be a nice play. RB2 is still a question mark with this team because who knows what Jahmyr Gibbs is. Tyjae Spears has appeared as a decent plug and play option. The two Eagles receivers, when you're starting two guys on the same team, you get some pushback there. It's hard to get both of them to have nice days. And Zay Flowers continues to be an excellent draft pick because he's just gets the ball all the time and scored his first touchdown this week. Jets defense great. So yeah, I mean 110. You're going to beat a lot of teams how this week played out. So you just got a bad matchup here with Team Bucher. But yeah, I think Ed's just doing what Ed always does. Managing, middling his way through, and going to find his way in the playoffs as a lower seed and maybe make some noise.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not much to say about Team Bucher. I mean, his record kind of speaks for itself. The Dak Prescott, pickup. It's funny because when you have a guy that's just kind of doing things right throughout the year, and then he picks up a guy like Dak Prescott, you're kind of like, that probably wasn't the best move there. And then Dak proves me wrong and puts up almost 25 points, which Dak is, he's a 17-point quarterback. I mean, that's just kind of type of guy he is. I had him in my other league and ended up dropping because he just wasn't doing what I needed him to do. But the rest of those guys are, they are, there's just not enough things to say about that starting lineup that that would be negative. But
Yeah.
moving on to Ed, he's got, for exception of Brees Hall, he's got a little bit of issues there at running back. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of depth, so if somebody goes down with an injury, we could see some issues there. But his wide receivers are phenomenal. I mean, you got AJ Brown and you got a handcuff with Smith. Zay Flowers, like you said, he's just been kind of getting fed in Baltimore. I feel like they've been feeding Zay Flowers more than they've been feeding any other rookie throughout the entire time I've ever watched the Ravens play. It's been
Yeah.
kind of crazy. But then moving up, looking at Lamar, he's kind of, while he's been putting up a decent product on the field, I know there's debate within our group whether or not Lamar is legitimately a quarterback or not, but the facts are the facts. I mean, Lamar does overthrow balls, but there was also, what was it, 6 or 7 drops 2 weeks
Well,
ago when I was
so
playing
do
with you. So
31 other quarterbacks in the NFL. So
right.
he ain't an
So
exception for overthrowing balls. But anyway, yeah.
right. So we have, him putting up 16 points, which is a little bit disappointing, but I think as far as a fantasy option, I mean, I think he's a little bit hit or miss also. He even made that comment, I guess it was on Twitter or wherever he made that comment saying that he doesn't care about people's fantasy teams or their lines. He just wants to win games, which as a Ravens fan I love,
As
but
a fantasy interview that you hate.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's like Austin Eckler always comes out and talks about fantasy football all the time and everything like that. So, you do like that as a fantasy owner of him. But yeah, I mean, as a Ravens fan, I just want a guy that wants to go win ball games. I don't care what it looks like. But
Exactly.
yeah, and you can't, I got to mention it every week. Laporta, I know he only had 5.6, but I mean, man, for a rookie, we're in uncharted waters fantasy production wise for a tight end here. I know going into last week he was number one, so obviously the down week this time. But I mean, man, like two huge boom weeks, and then this is his lowest production at 5.6. A lot of guys, including myself, will take a low of 5.6 out of your tight end for the year. So just got
Yeah,
to really shout out that one.
yeah, I would agree. I mean, I did look at Ed's team, as I was looking at this, and I realized he had Sam Laporta, and I was like, damn. I mean, he was a free agent. I should have picked him up over Dallas Goedert, and that's kind of where it landed. But I think that was a huge person to pick up, considering he is a rookie, and I think that we can expect good things out of him moving forward.
Yeah, and that was kind of the theme with Ed's team kind of coming into the year, just very, very unproven guys, and you're going to have some growing pains. But I even said to him, if you can get to, you know, 500 by the halfway point of the season, and Brees Hall's kind of getting back to where he is, and look how this is playing out. So like,
Right.
it's kind of all kind of how it kind of should be for him to make a run. But looking forward here to week 7 here, moving forward into the projections. Um, my matchup here against Team Coleman. It would be really cool to win a game, and I think I have a good opportunity to do that this week. I catch him with Chase on bye and Schultz on bye, so that really helps me. Beat me to the punch with Musgrave as a pickup, but I was able to pick up Zach Evans for the Rams, who appears to be the RB1. Hopefully, it's not a Demercado situation again, but I digress. Yeah, I got 2 Thursday night guys tonight in my receiver core, so we'll have a good feel after tonight's game. But I like my opportunity this week. I think it's a good one. I think Herbert is going to want to bounce back off that Cowboys loss. Him and Mahomes always seem to have shootouts kind of games, and we'll see if Aaron Jones actually doesn't suck this week. It would be really cool because that Denver defense does. Yeah, so I just like my matchups, and then just kind of looking over Team Coleman. ETN scares me, Tua scares me, obviously, but that Philly defense, I think, is going to be a little pissed off after losing that game last week to the Jets. Yeah, it's still a really solid squad here. Rashee Rice has been a fantastic pickup for him in the flex. So I think it'll be a really tight game, but I do give myself the edge here just based off him not having Jamar Chase and some of the other big contributors.
Yeah, I mean, I want to follow first off by saying this. I think this week is super pivotal on whether people win or lose because we're really seeing this is a huge week for bye weeks. I mean, there's a
It
ton of
is.
bye weeks this week,
Yeah,
so that's really going to show whether or not people's teams can survive when they're missing one or two pieces, versus how they've been able to survive when they have their entire roster for the most part
right.
available. Um, looking at your team, I mean, yeah, you're 1-5, but you've had the injury bug just been decimating you, and you've really been able to be fortunate enough to, since you are 1-5, with how we have things now with the waiver wire, you've got to have first dibs on a lot of guys that are available. So you've been able to taking advantage of those type of situations. Some of them they don't work out, like last week with Arizona's running back, but one of them's going to work out. And then we're looking at Team Coleman. He's 4-2. He's got a lot of people that are on bye weeks this week. I mean, there are a few people that are always going to scare you. ETN. I mean, I really thought. Oh, I'm sorry, I said his name wrong. Did I? I don't know.
Yeah, ETN's right.
Yeah, ETN. I really didn't think he was going to be as big as he has been. I really thought there was going to be more split time between him and um,
Tank.
Tank, and we really haven't seen that. I mean, I even held on to Tank in my other league for a little while because I thought that there was going to be a situation where ETN wasn't going to perform as well, and they'd get Tank in there, but it just hasn't happened. ETN just he's got his foot on the gas right now. He's not letting up. But I would say moving forward, I predict this to be an upset week for yourself against Team Coleman, just due to the fact of Team Coleman missing a couple of those pieces due to them being on a bye.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I think Team Coleman has definitely asserted himself into the conversation of a contender, while I am definitely trying to just squeak my way into the playoffs at this point, by any means necessary, or, we'll see how it goes. But so yeah, so I think we're both leaning me there, which, we'll see. But anyway, moving forward here to your matchup here, and I'll kind of let you kick it off.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, we got Team Nate against myself. I don't think teammates team's really a clear representation of him being a 3-3 team. I think his team is better than what is projected or what they're projecting him to score this week. But also
Hmm.
he's got a few guys such as DeAndre Hopkins that are on a bye. I think Team Nate needs to really focus on managing the waiver wire a little bit better. But I say that, but he also has Achane that he picked up off the waiver wire a
And
couple of weeks
Kyron
ago.
Williams was also a waiver pickup as well.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, he's done fairly well, but there's a lot still to be unproven. I mean, you got Matt Stafford in there; he's projected for 16 points. That's going to be okay. But then the question marks are going to be lying on guys like Jonathan Taylor. I think it was really smart that teammate did not play Jonathan Taylor last week because you don't know really what you're getting from him coming back
Hmm.
off that injury. But he got 9 points, and now Jonathan Taylor's kind of proven that he's going to be that guy. But I think he's still going to be splitting time a little bit. But I would have done the same thing as far as plugging Jonathan Taylor in here. I think you have him in there as Stephon Diggs, and even Chris Godwin. I mean, he's not the all-star player you thought he was going to be, but he's still going to be that solid guy that's going to put up consistent points. I'd be a little bit scared playing Cole Kmet
Yeah,
this
I was
week.
gonna point that out too.
But you know, looking at who else is out there, the tight end wire
Well, the
is
thing
very
he's
thin.
got Pitts on the bench, so like I think Pitts is definitely a reasonable play this week. I don't
Right,
like Komet. I'm a big Cole Komet fan. I just don't like him this week with the backup quarterback.
right. I agree. And then looking at my team, I mean, it looks like I got pretty much everybody back. I have one guy that was starting for me, which was Garrett Wilson. He's on my bench because he's not got an opponent this week. He's on a bye. And same with Brandon Cooks. I mean, Brandon Cooks, he was on my bench last week, and he put up a bunch of
He
points
had a nice week last
considering,
week.
yeah,
Yeah.
considering what he's been doing. So we got Christian Watson, and I know I took him kind of high in the draft, and I probably took him higher than what he was really worth. Looking back on it,
He
but
hasn't really gotten going yet.
he
He's had
has.
a couple nice games though. I'm a big Christian Watson fan.
I agree. I think he's going to end up doing okay, and they're playing Denver, so Denver's defense is pretty hot trash. So
Time to show up against the worst defense in the NFL.
yeah, so I feel confident about that. So I mean, I think that you know, look, anything can happen, but I feel like this is gonna be a relatively easy win for my team moving forward against Team Nate here. But a lot of things need to happen. I need to have a big game out of Raheem Mostert again, and
Hmm.
they're playing Philly's defense. That makes me scared. But the Chiefs playing LA Chargers. I think that the Chiefs defense has the ability to keep the Chargers offense at bay a little bit. So we'll see
Well,
how it
and
moves.
Staley does a good job of slowing his own offense down as well as a head coach. So, yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think you win here pretty good. I do think Nate probably beats his projection, but I think you probably do too.
I
103
agree.
feels really low for that team.
It does.
Yeah, you kind of took a lot of my talking points. I agree with your Jonathan Taylor take. I agree with your Cole Kmet take. Yeah, and I think your team is just pretty much fully healthy, but besides Garrett Wilson being on a bye. So yeah, I think you roll here pretty good.
Yeah.
So all right, moving on to the Milkman versus I'm on a new level. Not too much time needed to be spent here. We got a 25-point disparity. So we're in bye weeks for I'm on a new level a little bit. Plus, this team just hasn't cracked 100 all year. Milkman, he stay milking. He gonna bid it. He gonna get it. He gonna win it. Not too much needed to break down here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I got to give him on the level a little bit of credit here. He's been still managing the waiver wire,
Yeah,
so I got to give him a lot of credit there. It's just his guys haven't been clicking like he should have been. I mean, Geno Smith hasn't been doing what he needs to do, and Najee Harris, they put him back in there starting lineup, but I mean, Najee
he
Harris, I mean,
stinks.
he's trash. I mean, I think he was rated 31 last year out of 32 running backs. I don't see him getting re-signed with the Steelers. I just don't see he's a bust in my opinion.
He's RB
Um,
42, and he should be a top 15 guy.
yeah, I
So
mean,
he's just with the
it's just
volume he
not
gets, it shouldn't even
yeah,
be close. But
right.
Jalen Warren's going to be the guy there moving forward.
I agree. So we got that, and then like I said, he's been managing the waiver pretty well. It's just the same shame to see kind of the pieces that he put in are just not clicking at the moment. But you touched base on this a little bit, and I actually had a conversation with George possibly about taking on Justin Jefferson, but I was just too afraid for my team to who am I going to give up to get Justin Jefferson to take that chance to be a super strong team at the end of the year. But would I be giving up too much and lose too many games due to that to even be a strong playoff contender? So I backed off on that a little bit, but I think you could move St. Brown, you could move Justin Jefferson and try to to recap of what you were saying.
Yeah.
But the Milkman, I mean, there's just he's having a little bit of quarterback issues there, but
Hmm.
um, I think the Sam Howell pickup was the best player available. And I think against the Giants, he's going to have a
And I
pretty
think it's
solid
the
game.
right week to have a quarterback issue with a team that's also having issues with of their own. Because next week, obviously, Stroud's on bye. So even if Fields is out next week, Stroud's back, you're good. But like, yeah, so this is probably the right
Right.
time to have this issue and play Sam Howell. But yeah,
Yeah, I agree. And I think obviously as a scoring case, Amon Level is going to get milked.
yeah, a lot of us have. So it is the nature of the beast when you play the milkman that you're probably gonna get milked. Yeah, moving on here to Rock Boys versus the People's Champion. I will say Rock Boys. Tough bye week here. No CD, no Cowboys defense, no Thielen. That's about all you need to say. Still a 110 projection, which is pretty showing that he's got a solid squad. Full go here for pretty much from People's Champion. No Joe Mixon, but you're not missing much there. The homie Nico Collins, who I think he played last week. Actually, did he? I'm gonna go back and check because I gave him shit all the time for not playing him.
I don't think he did.
Yeah.
I might be wrong though.
Nico Collins, no, he did not. He got 10 points, and
Yeah.
Puka got. Well, look at that. He outperformed Puka Nacua again. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's just pat on the back there for me. But anyway, no Nico Collins decision this week. So yeah, so pretty much full go here for the guys. Zach Moss on the bench. I think that's probably the right decision with Brian Robinson and James Cook. James Cook does scare me. They went out and got Latavius Murray, and they gave him a ton of carries last week. So that's slightly concerning for what James Cook's going to be in the future. I do like Rock Boys moving forward. I think it's just a bad matchup week for him with some of the buys that he has. But I think it might almost be good to have these big bye weeks all in one fell swoop and just kind of be able to go full strength moving forward. Because obviously inserting CeeDee Lamb into this lineup, and he did pick up Latavius Murray, so good for him. So I think that's kind of actually a nice play. So yeah, I like Rock Boys team a lot here. I just unfortunate that he's going up against a full strength team in People's Champion here, and I think Purcell takes this one down just solely based off of the strength of these two teams. Facing off in the championship game, I might have a different opinion, but for right now, that's how I feel.
I agree 100% with you there. I mean, there's nothing really more that can be said about Rockwood except the fact that, yeah, he's not going to be playing his full team just due to bye weeks. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just this is going to be his off week. People's Champion was lucky enough to catch him on his off week, and that's just really where he's at. As far as People's Champion, I think the score is going to be a little closer than 110 to
I agree with
121.
that. Yeah.
Just because if you look at People's Champions weeks, I mean, they've pretty much been ugly up until Sunday night or Monday night, and it's always been a nail biter for him. He's stressing out in his RV or his camper down there in North Carolina, just praying to the guys that he can get the win. But it's been really fun to watch. I've really been enjoying it. I even found myself rooting for the People's Champion in some situations because I want to see a win because I don't want him to spiral into a world pissed off that he can't come back from. But he had the Cooper Cup situation that we gave him a lot of crap about in the beginning of the year, and it looks like it could start to pay off for him here if Cooper, continues to do what continues to do what he's done over the past year and year and a half. I know this is a very mild point, but I know how the People's Champion loves his kickers. And I'm a little surprised he's putting Jason Sanders in there with Miami. I drafted him. He didn't do super great. I let him go. But I see here he's got Nick Folk down there on his bench. So I don't know if he's going to be making a change prior to the league starting.
It's unfortunate that folks on bye this week are out. I think it's a slam dunk
Oh yeah,
play.
he's on bye. My bad.
But yeah, Jason Saunders. Yeah, it's. I think you might be expecting that Eagles defense to kind of slow down that Miami offense when they get close to the red zone. Maybe that's his thought process. Maybe he didn't think at all and said Jason Saunders is a cool name, and I'm going to plug him in. Yeah, who knows?
It's very possible. But no, I agree with you. I think it's going to be a really tight matchup, a really tight game between these two, but I think the People's Champion is going to ultimately pull away with the win.
Yeah, and for the love of God, next week play Nico Collins. That's all I ask of one team.
I don't really give him too much crap on Nico Collins. Nico Collins was horrible last year, so I see his apprehensiveness about starting Nico Collins. But I think that now that we're in week 7, I think it's time.
I do, but I don't, because last year he hyped up Nico Collins so much last year.
He did,
and then this year he drafted him again. Love Nico Collins. Hasn't started in one game this year.
I know.
And he's wide receiver 10 this year. So it's like, well, what are we doing?
Get it. Yeah.
But anyway, moving on to Rearview versus Wuhan here. Obviously, Ed's got some decisions to make as far as defense and kicker to get that score. So the project is going to probably be in Ed's favor this week, just based off of that. Going along here, Jahmyr Gibbs plays. He's going to get a lot of touches, maybe. So I think that his projection is 14. I think that's really high for that. He's got Justice Hill in there, kind of pretty much touchdown dependent there. Brock Purdy's been really solid except for last week. So I like Ed's team here. And I think that Miami game is going to be really fun to watch as a fan. So yeah, I think AJ Brown and Devontae can combine for some sort of 40, 45 points between the two of them there. Be interesting to see how Laporta does. Tight ends seem to kind of do okay against the Ravens. Running backs not so much. So he's got kind of a Baltimore Detroit. Half of his lineup is the Baltimore Detroit game. So we'll see. No Brees Hall this week, which really stinks because he's really started getting it going. And he did bench Lamar, which I don't hate against Detroit's defense because a little scary there, but we'll see. And then kind of looking at Wuhan here, teams are moving in the wrong direction. Kind of we talked about the injuries. McCaffrey is projected to play. Here he is. I don't think he's practiced at all this week though. McCaffrey is it's not a long-term injury, and they do play on Monday night, which does help. But I would be very with those obliques, man. I think they have a bye in a couple weeks. It wouldn't surprise me if they kind of just slowed him down a little bit. So I don't know if he plays. He's got Chuba in there, obviously he's on bye. So a couple roster decisions to be made here as well. But yeah, I kind of lean Ed here, just kind of based off of some of these, so just based off the matchups. I don't love Kirk and Hawkinson against San Francisco. Jacoby Myers should have a nice day against Chicago, but other than Debo might not play either because he left with a shoulder last week. So even if he plays, he's going to get a pitch count. Just a lot more questions than answers for Wuhan this week, and he hasn't cracked to 100 points the last 2 weeks, and I think Ed does. So for that reason, I'm going to give Ed the nod here.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with a lot of what you said here. You said a lot about what I was going to touch base on. I mean, with Brees Hall being on a bye week, that's really going to affect it. I don't think the obviously Ed hasn't updated his roster, so I don't think the 90 points is really indicative of what he's really going to score. Obviously, he's going to plug somebody in over the Jets. He's going to put a new kicker in there that's going to, bump his score up. And then, like you said about Wuhan, I mean, there's a lot of question marks. Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, those guys. I mean, they might not even play. Um, and then Cousins against San Francisco's defense is always a little bit scary. I don't see how Wuhan can win this one, especially with Ed hasn't set his lineup yet. So I think that Ed's going to probably be maybe around the 110, 115 mark, maybe even a little bit lower, actually, maybe 107. But I don't see if Wuhan even breaking the 100 mark.
Yeah, and he'll probably slot Chuba out there and probably let's see, he doesn't even have a running, so yeah, he's gonna have to pick up a waiver wire running back to plug in there for the RB2, which slim pickings out there in that department these days. Obviously, and then McCaffrey may not play like you said too. So yeah, just tough. I know he's projected 102 without Chuba, but I don't see him cracking another.
I agree. So I'd give this win to Ed as well.
So yeah, it's getting pretty quick here. I mean, our league is so tight. It's been fun. I wish I was more competitive because it's been so fun. I wish I was a part of it. But moving on to the last one here, probably the closest projection we have this week. We have a it didn't update the teams. Timeout. I hate when it does that. Yeah, so projections are the same, but yeah, it's interesting because we have Team Bucher here with Tony Pollard and Henry on bye, and Baker Mayfield is the starting quarterback. Obviously, brings his overall projection down. And Tomcat full strength, full go here. So projection wise, this is close, but I don't think it's going to end up that way. Ryan's very confident about this game. I think this really comes down to Davante Adams because last 2 weeks, nothing doing for him. At Chicago is a very good time for him to get right. And I think with his public bitching, we generally have seen this year when guys get really upset about their playtime or their touches or whatever, coaches seem to respond and get their guys the ball. Will Josh McDaniels do that? I think so this week. I think with Nick's quarterback issues and just, those two big running backs on bye, I think Ryan does squeak this one out. But I do think it's very close. And if Davante has another Davante type day, we'll see. Is that Zach there?
Yeah, it was the Milkman.
Does the Milkman have any comments on this week in his matchup?
We can get some comments from him. We get this one done here. I can bring him in for a guest.
All right,
spot.
yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, what's your opinion on this game?
I want to go again. I want to talk about this team because
Okay.
I'm excited for this game this week. This is the game of the week, in my opinion.
I agree.
I'm super excited for Ryan or Tuncat and Team Bucher. I know that there was comments made in the group chat. I would say I was one of those people that made comments about Team Bucher. I think that Team Bucher's record is not really super indicative to what the reality could be. I think Team Bucher's been extremely healthy this year. That's one of the reasons why he's been able to be so successful. I think if he had one or two injuries, he'd be right down there in the maybe 3-3 or 4-2 realm with the rest of us. So I think that looking at it, Team Bucher hasn't really been managing the waiver wire very well. He's got a bunch of he drafted what was it, 4 quarterbacks or something like that.
Three,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So you got to be more on top of the waiver. But with that being said, Tony Pollard, he's always been a steady, consistent guy. Derrick Henry, consistent guy. You have both of those guys on a bye this week, which is going to hurt you. So I think this is really what we're gonna. This is going to prove whether or not Team Bucher is really a 5-1 team, or he's just been lucky with staying healthy. And I really think that looking at it from a perspective of Tomcat, you have guys like Gus Edwards in there that, those are question marks. You got to figure out a better person to put in there besides Gus Edwards because he has not been doing it for you. Russell Wilson, he's going up against Green Bay. That could be a solid game for him. So I expect him to get, maybe 20 points out of that. And DeAndre Swift's been a guy this year that's been surprising based on how he played last
Yeah.
year in Detroit. And then you got the guys. I think you're spot on with Devontae Adams having a bigger game, obviously, than we had last week. And I think Josh McDaniels is going to recognize Devontae Adams as he's your guy. He's the guy of that team that's going to be able to get the team moving forward and get
Makes way
wins.
too much money for 2 catches.
Yeah, yeah. And then you got Travis Kelce. Obviously, he's your guy too.
Hmm.
Harrison Buckner has even been, um, doing better than what I even expected. I passed him over in the draft just because he didn't really do me all that great last year, but he's been doing well this year. And I really think that Tomcat is going to pull out the upset win. I
Yep.
think that overall, as a team as a whole, Team Tomcat has the ability to really be better than his 2-4 record has been showing. I mean, he's lost a couple close ones. I mean, it's just I see him upsetting Team Bucher. I see him moving to 3-4 and Bucher moving to 5-2. And I really like this matchup. I'm going to pay a lot of close attention to it because I think it's going to come down to Sunday or Monday night.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really exciting matchup, and yeah, it's Ryan is fully on the coattails of what are these receivers going to do? Is really going to score a touchdown, or is he going to put up 4 points? So I think we both are in agreement that Tomcat gets it done. So in synopsis, just so it makes it easier for me to track the records, we both had me beating Coleman, we both had you beating Nate, we both had Milkman beating George, we both had Purcell, right?
Yep,
I had Review. You had Review. So
I
we're
did.
we're 6 for 6 down the line, all the same picks, and then we both had Tomcat. So not going to be any shakeups in the scoring record, but that's okay with me. But do you want to see if you can get Milkman to slide on in here?
Yeah, give me a second.
This would be Milkman's first appearance on the pod. It would be quite exciting for him to do that. We'll take a quick look at the standings while we wait. Just I know I'm hanging out here down low, but man, this is really cool, really exciting to see all these people scoring here. Team Bucher, much to the chagrin of Mike, is the #1 points getter. So is what it is. Talk your shit. Is he going to show up this week and back up that #1 standing? We shall see. Risky Dipper points against is the best, but yeah. So and
Yeah.
it's all danger here with I'm going to level with most points against and least points for. But
Do you hear me?
yeah, I got you.
What up?
Oh, there he is, popping the pod cherry. What's going on, dude?
Not much, man. How are you?
Good. Yeah. So just wanted to get some thoughts on you on your season so far. How you feeling about the Milkman squad and how you feel about this week's matchup?
I'm feeling good, man. I've had some good weeks. I've had some down weeks with buys and injuries and things like that. Last week with Wazinski, I kind of lucked out because he's had some really good weeks too, and then some down weeks, and luckily I got him on a down week. But overall, I feel pretty good about my team. Better than I thought it was going to be. Honestly, I mean, I was
Hmm.
projecting I think like 11th out of 12 when I drafted. So I thought, I'm pretty lucky to have
The
him on there.
milkman is a staple of winning football in this league. That has been proven. But
Yeah.
I'm
Um,
curious to hear about your thoughts on the Sam Howell decision. I know your quarterback situation is a little rough this week, but why Sam Howell?
Well, if you look at his track record the past few weeks, he's had some pretty solid output. So
Kind of looked like it too.
yeah, yeah. Well, that too. I mean, I was looking for somebody that looked like me, um,
Yeah.
standard white boy, and Sam Howell.
Standard white.
Sam Howell fit the quota. So yeah, I mean, I put Fields in last week because he put up a few, had a couple good weeks, but in the beginning of the season he wasn't very good. So
Yeah.
and then last week he disappointed. CJ Stroud didn't do much better, so I mean it wouldn't have made a difference because I ended up getting the W anyway. But we're looking at the waiver wire. I mean, Sam Howell's at the top. He's had pretty consistent numbers, so I figured he'd be a good option to go to.
Yeah, sneaky number 13 ranking.
What's that?
He's ranked number 13 in the position, which is quite sneaky. Other than that really dud against Buffalo, he's been really, really solid.
Yeah, so hopefully he puts up a pretty good week this week for me. Because it seems like Justin Fields is going to be like almost like a game time decision, so I might just have to stick with Howell.
Yeah.
But Howell's been more consistent if you look at the numbers than Justin Fields has been.
Yeah, overall, week to week, absolutely. Just Fields has had those higher ceilings. How does it feel to just know you're going to get 100 points out of Tyreek Hill every week?
It feels good. I mean, it's kind of a crutch to lean on, really.
Yeah.
Everybody else is kind of up in the air. And then with bye weeks and things like that, it's throwing some variables into play. I think I don't know if it was last week or the week before, like 4 or 5 guys were on bye.
Yeah, I think last week was your bad bye week, but yeah, I mean 4-2, third place in the league. Just gonna look at the standings real quick here, get your thoughts. Yeah, who surprises you with where they're at, if anybody? We got Rock Boys and Coleman and Risky all at 4-2 with you, and then some notables down here as well. And Bucher at the top, but anyone surprising you that they're 4-2? Anyone surprising that they're doing poorly? Just kind of thoughts in general.
Probably Risky Dipper.
Okay.
I mean, last year he was down towards the bottom.
I was surprised.
So he's doing pretty well this year. Same thing with Wazinski. I think he was down around the bottom last year too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I think I had a pretty good run last year, the year before. I had like 7 wins in a row, and then I just fizzled out in the end. So hopefully my team can kind of stay strong for the remainder of the year. I mean, if Tyreek Hill gets hurt, I'll be screwed.
Yeah, that'll be blouses for you, I think there. But yeah, I mean, riding the coattails. I mean, Tyreek's been awesome, man. I mean, other than two, you're either getting 30 points or you're getting 10. I think you'll take that.
I'm not complaining. I mean, he was the player that I kept from last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a good decision. I was torn between him and Derrick Henry, and I think I made a good choice.
Yeah, Henry's been a little up and down, and I think with getting Tyreek, I think he was your second round pick last year, so that's kind of nice to get that guy in your second round. But yeah, well, thanks for taking the time. And any final closing thoughts and anything thoughts about Georgia's matchup against Georgia this week? Do you think you probably feel pretty confident about that one?
I feel confident. I mean, if you look at Georgia's record, but every week's a little bit different. You really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, injury could happen mid-game to one of my players, and then it puts George right back in the mix. And George too. I mean, he had a really solid team last year. He's probably just as surprised at his record than everybody else is as well. When we draft, you don't really know how players are going to pan out. Some of the top players end up just not working out season to season, and then you have some players that you pick up off the waiver wire.
Yeah, man, and it's just one of those things, man. This year's been tough on injuries and tough sledding with running backs. It feels like, but yeah, man. Well, let me stop sharing the screen here. Everyone get a good look at you who's never seen your face before. So, lot more gray than you used to be, I think. But yeah, that's a good look for you.
Yeah, what are those Pokemon cards back there?
Yeah, man, it's Pokemon Center over here.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, but well, thank you both for joining the pod this week. Gonna sign it off here. Any closing thoughts, Mike? And thanks for joining.
Yeah,
No,
man. No
I-
problem.
I appreciate it. You know, a good week. So good luck to everybody, and see you next week.
All right, there it is. Well, thanks again. Have a good rest of your day.